call the Board of Estimate and Contract special meeting into order. It is Wednesday, July 22nd, 2020. It is now 8:06 a.m. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mayor, this is a special meeting of the Board of Estimate and Contract of the City of Mount Vernon here today, Wednesday, July 22nd, 8 a.m. in the Mayor's Conference Room and the first floor of City Hall, Mount Vernon, New York. And the purpose is to discuss the recently filed lawsuit and settling rates for counsel to represent the city and or Deborah Reynolds as controller. The case of the Board of Education of the City of Mount Vernon City School District, plaintiff, petitioner, versus the City of Mount Vernon and Deborah Reynolds as controller for the City of Mount Vernon, defendant/respondent. And note that it is anticipated that there will be a motion made to enter into executive session pursuant to New York's Public Officers Law 101, subsection 1/D, and any other such business as presented. Yes, ma'am. The roll being called at 8:07. Controller Reynolds.
Here.
President Pro Tem Marcus Griffith.
Here.
And Mayor Patterson.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, you can proceed with the agenda.
Well, I'm going to executive session to discuss.
Then I would need a motion for such.
I move that we go into executive session
I second it.
to discuss legal matters.
On the question? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote.
Controller Reynolds, I'll say you.
Yes, that's fine.
President Pro Tem
Yes, aye.
and Mayor Patterson Howard.
Aye.
We are in executive session. We will ask all members to please clear the room, and all cameras please to be turned off. And we are now in executive session until such time that a motion has been granted and normal session has been resumed. Then we'll bring everyone back in. So we can ask everyone out at your discretion. I'll say you on the assistant to the council. He's here with
During executive session, we just asked for an understanding of where we are with the tax payments to the school district. We received a prepared statement and no further information as to where we are and what is due to the school district. And so, as the mayor, my concern is from January, we've asked for updated financials from the controller. Updated financials on year-to-date spending based on the 2020 budget and 2020 bills. We've asked for information on 2019 year-to-date spending, 2018 year-to-date spending, actuals. We've never been able to receive any level of accuracy. Even just earlier this week, our DPW department, which continuously tries to order equipment and enter into leases for safety, has asked for information around their budget lines and what they have left. Each of our departments track what they spend and what we submit. We're constantly being told by the controller's office that we have nothing left in our lines based on the 2020 budget. But we can never get details as to what has been applied to those different lines. Are you applying 2018 bills? Are you applying 2019 bills? So for the city, and the council has made the same request and received no response. So the challenge is you can never reconcile what the controller's records are with any of the department's records, because she just will say, you don't have this, but not give us any details around what checks, what check numbers, what vendors, what dates, and from what year these expenses have come from. When I met with the school district back in, I believe it was February, early February, one of the things they stated at that time is that they were looking to take over the collection of taxes from the city of Mount Vernon. They said in the past, when the controller has transferred the money into their lockbox, again, there is no backup to determine what you're being paid for, what period of time. I mean, the basic way to explain this is when people receive their paychecks, on your paycheck stub, it says you're being paid from this time to this time. And so you have an understanding. You know, if you're being paid overtime, if you're being docked, you understand it's from this period to this period. I wanted to just explain it on a microeconomic scale so everyday people can understand it. When you're paying your Con Ed bill, you send something into Con Ed, you might owe 5 months. But you tell them, I'm paying, this check is to be applied to March and April, you know, I might still owe you June, July, and I haven't received my August bill. But we can't get that type of detail and information from the controller. What we are looking for, and we're trying to understand so we can understand if there's legitimacy to this lawsuit or what the numbers might look like, is how much money has been collected in 2018 for taxes, how much money's been collected in 2019 for taxes, how much money has been collected in 2020 year-to-date for taxes. And based on what has been collected in 2018, 2019, and 2020, how much has been transferred and paid to the school district, what has been retained in the city coffers to cover our bills, and what has been transferred and paid to the county of Westchester. Because when the city of Mount Vernon receives monies, it goes into 3 different places. It goes for the school district, it goes to the city, and a percentage goes to the county. We have not been able to receive that basic information. So when you're unable to receive basic information as to your revenues and where those revenues have been applied and what expenses has been paid, it's very difficult to operate the city. And I guess this is, you know, pretty much the concern of the school district. They've received some payments, but they've received no information based on what they've told. And so we are just here trying to get an understanding from the controller. Help us. We are the city. We are the city. The city of Mount Vernon is being sued. The controller is not being sued on her own. The city is being sued. And so we're all in this same ship together. If the city loses this lawsuit, it's the entire city. It's not just the controller. It's not just the mayor. It's not just the council. If we're not properly transferring the monies over to the school district, then our children are losing. If we are sending the money over to the school district based on what we've collected, then let's say that and let's show a proper accounting so that we can reconcile this information. This is not about politics. It's not about posturing. It's about really coming together so that we can make progress. I believe all of us are tired of the lawsuits, the cross lawsuits, the arguments. Mount Vernon is in a very good position to move forward, change the narrative, and come into the 21st century like the rest of Westchester and so many of our surrounding communities. But we get in our own way with lack of communication, with people never stopping campaigning and focusing on governing. And governing only happens when we're able to work together. When we're able to work together, there are checks and balances that need to be in place. One person cannot be the repository of all the information. If the information is there and available, and it should be, because as the fiscal officer for the city of Mount Vernon, you should have an accurate accounting of the monies that you take in. You should have an accurate accounting of where those monies go. You have sufficient staff lines in your office. Whether or not you have chosen to hire and properly position people in your office so that you could do your job is not the question. The money is there and the positions are there for you to do it. And so it's time to do this work so that we can stop the back and forth, whether it's the school district, whether it's the different unions that are suing us, whether it is vendors that are waiting for payments. It all goes back to the same thing, whether it is money that we're waiting on from the Department of Transportation, because we have over $2.3 million sitting there that we can't download to pave streets because bills are not paid, regardless of what it is. Division of Criminal Justice Services, monies that we're waiting, over $400,000 to be reimbursed to the city. But there is no cooperation. There is nothing more than constant, incessant emails and finger pointing, as opposed to a very unique, authentic will to work together to resolve the issues of the city. And it's just frustrating. We're trying to get answers, but we can get nothing more than a prepared statement. Is there anything else?
Well, we have an item on the agenda.
We have an item on the agenda. So if we can move forward with the item on the agenda.
I'd like to read item.
Yes, please.
Whereas pursuant to section 153 of the Charter of the City of Mount Vernon, Corporation Council, with written consent of the mayor, may employ counsel as such at such compensation as may be agreed upon by the Board of Estimate contract in the conduct of proceedings in which the city is party. And whereas by letter dated July 21st, 2020, the Corporation Council has recommended that the board retain Oxman Law Group, PLLC, as special counsel for the Board of Education of the City of Mount Vernon School District B, the City of Mount Vernon, and Deborah Reynolds as controller for the City of Mount Vernon. Now therefore be it resolved that Oxman Law Group, PLLC, be retained at the rate of $345 per hour for senior partners and $295 per hour for associate counsel, and be it further resolved that funds are available in budget code A as in Alpha 1420.405, that's contracted outside services in the law department, 2020 budget, and be it further resolved that this resolution shall take effect immediately.
So moved. Seconded. On the question?
On the question,
On the question.
the law department is disqualified from representing me. The Board of Estimate treats me like an adversary, especially the mayor, who has recently sided with the plaintiff on Facebook regarding the Board of Education suit. My attorney is the logical and best choice to represent me as the comptroller and the city, as he has successfully done in the prior Board of Education suit. So I just wanted to put that on the record.
Thank you, and that is the self-same prepared statement. So.
May I be heard?
Yes, you may be
Okay.
heard.
All right, so, I can't tell whether or not my office is disqualified from representing the comptroller, because probably I think it's my understanding upon advice of counsel, she's refused to give the board, me and the other fiduciaries of the city, any information at all as to what her position could possibly be in this lawsuit. I'd like to take note that the city is first named, and so we should have the opportunity to select counsel. I also the comptroller has put forth the name of J.B. Hashmall as the attorney's representative, and I can see that he did represent her in a prior version of this lawsuit. My problem with the representation is because I don't think that Mr. Hashmall has ultimately acted in the best interest of the city. He and the comptroller have both willfully failed to give any information, financial information about his representation. I've asked for it repeatedly. He basically told me how much he's been paid is none of my business, which is an interesting response for someone to say, because it's a matter of public record and public concern. I think that the taxpayers are entitled to know how much they're paying attorneys. I also believe that Mr. Hashmall is instructing the comptroller to not comply with requests to force litigation. That's my personal opinion, and that seems to be a reoccurring thing, and obviously he would profit from that. So I believe that while my office may not be able to directly represent her, we have put forth a firm that we think could represent her, and I also, in kind, don't think that Mr. Hashmal should be able to represent her, especially since he and the comptroller refused to give any information at all about the financial issue, except for he has submitted a per hourly rate, but what that represents, we have no idea, and without being able to look at the bills, the comptroller right now is the only person aware of how much she's wiring Mr. Hashmal. Hold on, let me finish. And has repeatedly refused. So this is going to force probably additional litigation in which Mr. Hashmal may be a defendant, because absolutely, without question, the city and the taxpayers are entitled to this information. So he would simply be not qualified to represent the comptroller in this lawsuit. He's also representing the comptroller in a lawsuit, which I believe is not filed in good faith, personally suing the members of the Board of Ethics who were looking into the comptroller's appointments in her office. And they are,
hiring practices.
yes, improper hiring practice. I don't want to get too much into that, but they're civil service violations, to which I have, prior to being in Corporation Counsel, have reached out to the comptroller to try to get her into compliance. And rather, instead of cooperating with the Corporation Counsel's office to do that, she decided to personally sue the people who are trying to get information about her compliance, and Mr. Hashmal is representing her in that lawsuit as well. And so for those reasons, I don't believe that he acts on behalf of the citizens of Mount Vernon, and he is disqualified in kind from representing the lawsuit. So hence I put forth the name of a attorney who does other lawsuits for us. He needs to be paid. He has had some questions about being paid, but other than that, he's up and ready to go to represent the city in this lawsuit. And if at any point he determines that he cannot represent both the city and the comptroller, then we will make that determination together, and then the comptroller will put forth other names that she would like to have to represent her personal interest, or her interest as the comptroller, because she is not yet named personally. Not that I have any reason to think that she will be, but if that should come, I have trust that the ultimate law firm will make that determination, as other attorneys do, and say, Mr. Johnson, we advise that this person should be entitled to their own attorney, and at the city's cost. We've recently done that in prior cases, but certainly, they should not be Mr. Hashmal. That's my professional opinion.
So Corporation Counsel, just to answer what you said today, what you described today was false. The Comptroller's Office has given you and provided you information that you requested from us. It is you, in fact, that has not given me or complied with any of the requests in regards to all of the delinquent lawyer bills that you hold in your office. You have not complied with my memorandum, nor has the mayor, nor has her departments. So we're sitting here today ridiculing the comptroller again, making up false statements. It doesn't make any sense. I have asked since the mayor came in January, and I have advised her about the bills coming down late continuously. It didn't only happen with the last administration or the one prior to that. It continues to happen. The Comptroller's Office continues to receive bills 5, 6, 7 months behind with the new mayor, yet she continues to say it is our fault. If you hold the bills in your departments and don't bring them down to us so that we can remit a check after we review them, that's why the bills don't get paid. It actually is the mayor's and her department's responsibilities to pay the bills, not the finance department. Once we receive them, we take them, we review them, we do our checks and balance, and then we remit a check to the vendor. If we do not receive the bills timely, which we have not, especially since this mayor has come into office, you cannot continue to blame the finance office for what is happening within your own office. It is not fair.
Yeah, I just want one simple.
And that's all I wanted to say for the record.
That's fine.
Basically, you cannot blame the finance department for what is happening in your departments. Bills have to come down timely. I have sent Mayor Patterson Howard a memorandum when she first came in office. I sent her the purchasing policy when she came in office to make her aware of how city government runs. But yet she continues to blame me for her departments not bringing down vendors' bills on time. As I stated, they're still coming down 5, 6, 7 months past their due date. That is not the finances choice. That is not our fault. That is the mayor's department. So she has to be responsible in making sure that they come down to the finance office on time so that we are not falsely blamed continuously, as she does.
I'm almost tempted to not respond because, but a simple response is, I think that is a very misleading narrative.
Absolutely
But
not.
that's fine.
Absolutely not.
So, thank you, Madam Controller,
Thank
for
you.
your narrative. The challenge that you have experienced since January, while I was giving a policy, I was given a policy written under former Controller Maureen Walker, because that's the last time financial policies were written and updated. And under
It was
Controller,
before her time, the purchasing policy.
so I asked that, as I was very respectful of you when you spoke, and I
I'm just
did not
correcting you, Mayor Paxton
interfere
Howard. I'm just
with
correcting you because you're knowledgeable.
nor did I correct you. And I have more government experience than you.
You have never been a CFO anywhere. You're the caseworker.
You
for
had
the
not been a
YMCA.
CFO before
You're the
getting here.
YMCA
Okay, so
counselor.
please respect the floor. I am the chairperson. I recognized you and
may
allowed you to
continue, Mayor
speak.
Paxton Howard.
And I ask that you please
You
not
may
interrupt me.
continue.
and be
Absolutely, you may
professional.
continue.
Thank you. So, as I stated, the documentation that I received came from the former controller. And if those policies and procedures were actually followed, then Mount Vernon would be in a better position since 2018. But they have not been followed. The controller definitely controls the flow of information and the receipt of invoices into her office. She continues to say her office, but the truth of the matter is it is not the fault of her office, because her office staff is not allowed to receive paperwork. If she allowed her office and her staff to actually do their jobs, then her office would operate in a much more efficient manner. But in order to get an appointment to bring vendors' invoices downstairs, you can wait weeks. And if you offend or upset the controller in any way, as a commissioner, as a chief, as a department head, in any way, she cancels your appointment, she reschedules your appointment, and for many of the commissioners, this has happened and going on for months. And so we bring paperwork down to the controller, and if she does not receive it, and if she does not stamp it in, then she claims that the paperwork has not been received. Now that does not mean that it has not been scanned in emails. That doesn't mean that it has not been brought down to her office over and over and over again. It's just that she says, for her own narrative, it is not properly received until she stamps it in. And so you can bring down bills from January in February, because it usually takes you about a month to receive an invoice or a delivery, and you prepare that paperwork to bring it down. But she refuses to receive it. No one in her office, other than the controller, is allowed to receive documentation and information. It has to be the controller herself. You can go into the controller's office if you can get into the office, if it is not unlocked. And now there is a sign on the door saying that no city hall employee can even come to her office without an appointment. So from the hours of 9 to 1 when she's generally open, or 9 to 2. COVID is over, City Hall is open fully, but the controller's office is still not operating at full speed. I'm just really not sure what they're doing and what the reason or excuse is, and on Fridays, still closed or operating partially. I think last Friday they might have been open for the first time. So, that's the challenge that we continue to have and we've been having. There are bills that have not been paid in 2 years. That has nothing to do with me. I've only been here for 6 months. And as she said, it was with the prior mayor. I guess she's speaking about Andre Wallace, and the mayor before that. And I guess she's speaking regarding Richard Thomas, because those are the other 2 mayors that she has worked in office with or been in office with at the same time. So like I said, it cannot, 20 different departments and 20 commissioners and deputy commissioners and a chief cannot all be wrong. If you want to control the narrative and if you want to set the table, that's what she does. She sets the table, and if you do not have a stamp, then it did not happen. That does not mean that every effort was not made to bring it down. And so what we've had to do is we continuously do double, triple, and quadruple work. Whenever we get bills and information, we're scanning them, we're emailing them, because it creates a record that we made attempts to send this information, and she has told us that she refuses to receive it.
I'd just like to say, when I walked into the law department, our records were for like about $2 million still on the books because we have no information. I have attorneys calling me for bills for 2017, 18, 2019, prior to my being the corporation counsel. My staff, one particular person spent a good 40 to 60% of their time trying to figure out what was paid now to pay, what was not paid, and we have no assistance from the comptroller's office in that regard. So the narrative that is given, as I said, was misleading.
It's false and misleading. The last thing that I want to say concerning Mr. J. Hashmo, okay? So the only time that I received a check to be signed for Mr. J. Hashmo was back in January. I asked for backup for the check. I wanted to understand why we were paying J. Hashmo, as well as why we were paying a technology vendor who installed, without knowledge, without contract approval, or anything in the comptroller's office, a firewall, which cut off access to the rest of the city, including the mayor and all of our commissioners, access to our financial records. When I asked for backup to that documentation, she refused. And so when the comptroller sends checks to your office, she'll send a batch of checks. And if you do not return the entire batch of checks to her, she will not receive any of the checks back. And so on the same day that I questioned these 2 checks that were in that batch, the comptroller told me that she was not going to provide that document, that backup documentation, one of them being J. Hashmo. In this letter, it says that he's been representing her since 2018. Whenever you are going into contracts or requesting representation, you're requesting it for something specific. Those referrals go to the city council. The city council approves or rejects it. If they approve it, it comes to the Board of Estimate. The Board of Estimate approves or rejects it. The comptroller refuses to follow that policy and procedure when it comes to J. Hashmo. And
with regard to council, the corporation council makes a recommendation and it comes directly to the Board of Estimate. So he had a retainer for an EPA and then some other.
But it was not just an open.
No. He's not a staff attorney. The argument that is, is that the comptroller, and this is probably an issue that's going to get litigated, right? And it does say some other matters, but certainly not as broad as he has been operating, upon my belief. But it's difficult to tell what he's been doing when they willfully refuse to give you the financial information.
Any invoices that discuss what he's being paid for. And so when I refused to sign that check for the 2 things I had questions about, and there was a batch of checks that was with it, she refused to accept any of those back and refused to pay any of those vendors. But within 48 hours, she did go and wire transfer money to J. Hashmo, as well as to this technology company that installed installed a firewall for her internet system, which cuts off the rest of the city from having any access to fiscal information in the city. And so it is very disingenuous for her to say that we hold invoices or that we hold checks in our office. These are checks that she refused to receive back, and she refuses to give any information and backup around vendors that she wants to pay. And so the controller pays who she wants to, when she wants to, especially when it serves her interests. She uses electronic file transfer to pay. None of these come by my desk. None of this comes, and I have access to this information. And it was not until about a week and a half ago that I even gained access to online viewing of bank records for the city of Mount Vernon. And so the controller's been transferring and wire transferring money without any checks and balances for months now since I've come into office. And this is a concern to me. It's a great concern. And if we were talking about transparency and if we're talking about fiscal responsibility, it is not happening. And for the record, I was not a clerk or a case manager for the YMCA. I was the chief executive officer. I oversaw budgets, I oversaw a board, I oversaw strategic plans, and I came in and I was responsible for over 10 years of financial audits that were done and done successfully and were done within their allotted time period. If we needed an extension, we got an extension for a few months, but again, it was done. So for the controller to act as if I don't have fiscal understanding and if I don't have government experience, I worked for the government from 1995 to 2003. That was 8 years, and that is more time combined than she was a city council person or the controller, and I've been a top tier chief executive officer for over 10 years and have had 15 years of C-suite experience. And so if the controller would actually one day reveal what her experience and her education is, then we could set them side by side and see who has more executive and more fiduciary expertise. And I think my resume, my education, and my experience would speak for itself.
Mayor Patterson Howard, just to answer your question, because you made a lot of false statements here today, like you always do publicly against me. You treat me like your adversary. Basically, I just want to say, for the record, there are policies and procedures that you have not followed, especially at the Board of Estimate and Contract meeting, and you still continue to not do that. There are 3 bids required for purposes, and you decide that I'm going to pick one. You've actually stated at the Board of Estimate and Contract meeting. That's disingenuous to sit up here and act as if you are following these very same policies that were given to you. The mayor receives checks to countersign. I want to talk about that because she made a false statement. And she made a statement that her fiduciary duty is supposed to be one of these reasons why she countersigns the checks. Her department is the department that brings down the vendor's bills. Once the vendor bills come down to the controller's office, we do our part. We check, we make sure they're legal. We don't process them if they are illegal. I have received some illegal bills from you and the law department recently. But as I said, they come down to the finance department, we process it, we review it, we make sure there's no illegal bills in the batch. Then what we do is, we give the check, I sign the check as the controller. Then, once I sign the check, giving an approval that everything has been checked for the city of Mount Vernon and there's no fraudulent checks or fraudulent documents that were processed. Then, we send the checks up to the mayor's department. At that time, the mayor's responsibility is to countersign the checks. She shall, per the city charter. Every department that sends down the bills has copies, stamped in copies of what they send to our office to be processed. The mayor has, in fact, if she has any questions in regard to the vendor bills that her department brings down, the onus of going and speaking to the commissioners and ask them why they paid this particular bill. As far as any attorney bills, all of the attorney bills are within the department that submits it to us as well. I have given an accounting to all of these branches, to all the departments. We give them expense reports that we generate through Excel because our system is not fully up yet. But we give them these documents. So why they would falsely state today that we don't is something that they continuously do against my department and myself. All I'm saying is, once the vendor bills come to the controller's office, our finance office, our staff reviews it, they check it, they process it, I sign the check, it goes to the mayor's department where she is to countersign. No, no batch should be broken. Every check in the batch has to be reviewed. And also, if the mayor ever asks me something, I do not fail to answer her. There's nothing to hide in the finance department. But all of these false accusations is the very reason why they treat me like their adversary. There's no communication. We can't talk. The mayor goes on the Facebook and defames me almost every day. Like I said, the mayor recently sided with the plaintiff in the school board suit. What am I to think?
So if I, just for the record, because
And we are still in
And
discussion.
this is not even an
Still-
argument. I'm just stating the facts on the record because every time I hear on television, the mayor is accusing me of something. Facebook, she's accusing me of something. Show the facts. I, in fact, had a email from one of our vendors who stated to me that the mayor was holding his check for 6 months. The mayor never emailed me on those checks. She just held them upstairs. So she held the check upstairs. And then when the vendor called for his money, she had her departments email the vendor to say, I had them. When she in fact had them and knew she had them upstairs. So to tell vendors false information that continuously happens, this is something that continuously happens almost on a daily basis. When in fact it is their departments that are holding the vouchers for months past their due date. The mayor has to take responsibility. She says she knows finance. She knows her department's supposed to keep up with their finances. They're the ones that submit the vouchers. If she has a fiduciary responsibility of making sure that this is done right, and she has not. I'm talking about old bills, yes. Mayor Thomas was one, in fact, the same person. But it is in her administration, while she is here, that we're still receiving bills past due. 5, 6, 7 months past due. You can't blame the past from something that's happening today. So I just wanted to say that for the record today, and to express to Mayor Patterson Howard that she has to take responsibility for her department. You have to make sure they bring the vouchers out on time so they can be paid, and stop lying on me.
Thank you, ma'am. Discussion back on the
so
motion.
just back on, back on the motion. So as the controller stated, that yes, we review bills of our departments before they go to her office. So I have no problem countersigning checks that come from my departments. But when the controller asks me to countersign checks that comes from her department, I asked for backup.
Your
Especially
department
from her
haven't.
attorney. If it is her attorney, and if it is expenses that she has done to go out and get a contractor to do work in her office, that information and that backup would not come from my department. It would come from her department. She engages her attorney. She engages people
law
that she
department
has
has those.
to do, and we have no backup. And so, like I said, we asked for backup. She refused to give backup.
That's not true.
I refused to countersign those checks, and she chose to pay her personal vendors for her office through electronic fund transfer and circumvented the process. In the same process of that, she refused to accept almost 20 checks back from my office
That's not true.
because the batch was broken, and we have documentation. And, so I'm not holding checks
So
in
send
my
it to me,
office.
Patterson Howard.
I am not holding checks. I am only.
You did
I
hold
have
that check.
checks.
You did hold those checks.
I have a
this
batch.
January.
Point of order, ma'am.
I have
But she did.
a batch of almost 20 checks that she has refused to accept back. And it's very disingenuous since she did go on and pay the vendors that she chose to pay. And then
Untrue.
she's refusing to pay any of the other department expenses that were included in that batch.
Mayor
And
Patterson
we
Howard,
have
you held
information.
that whole batch
And we
upstairs and then
have-
lied to the vendor.
And we have information in
That's
that.
so
Point of order,
disingenuous.
madam, please.
That's
So
so
I now am
disingenuous.
recognizing Corporation Counsel so we could get back on track.
Right.
Yes, thank
Finish
you.
Yeah,
this
yeah.
meeting.
And
So-
point of-
I appreciate
and
that.
point of order, one time, Mayor, through the chair, you'd also had a request from
Council.
President Pro Tem also.
Would you defer just for 1 second? On the issue of providing information, the comptroller is absolutely not telling the truth.
Corporation
When-
Counsel,
I'm
this is not
sorry,
here to
ma'am.
slander me.
I'm not
This is not, even follow the Board of Estimate and Contract agenda. This is what the agenda says today. It doesn't say come to a meeting to defend the controller. That's not what this Board of Estimate agenda says today. So what I would appreciate if we would follow what you have put on the Board of Estimate Contract agenda, so that I can go back to work and not sit here I did not agree to come in to argue with you today about the false allegations you're stating against the Controller's Office. So please, let's move forward.
Okay, so
Now,
as a
Corporation
ordinary-
Counsel, you're recognized.
Thank you. As an ordinary course of business, when your department is mentioned, you're allowed to be able to give a response.
That is not what this meeting is about today, Corporation Counsel. You're just making up something today. If you want to discuss, you have the opportunity. Anyone has the opportunity to, when they want to discuss bills that the mayor's departments haven't paid, we can do that. Set up a conference call, have another meeting. I'll be happy to discuss the deficiencies of the bills coming down to the Controller's Office. They're 5, 6, 7 months past due. So I would like us today to focus on what you stated, the reason for us being here today.
Okay, Madam Controller.
That's not why I'm
But
here.
I am going to.
I'm not here to argue
As a
about
point of order, please address the chair.
back and forth. I'm not here to argue about back and forth.
And as a
That's
point
not
of
what
order,
we're here
please
today.
address the chair. Thank you.
Stay
As
focused.
I pointed, the strategy is to disrupt and say things and not allow people to not respond.
Right.
With regard to Mr. Hashmall, okay, I have received one invoice for work that he was doing on a city retained case, the EPA matter. Absent that, despite repeated requests from the Comptroller's Office, she has failed to show me any invoices whatsoever with regard to Mr. Hashmall.
I'm sure.
Okay, great.
I'm sure.
So
There are
presumably,
This is why Corporation Counsel, you and I had a discussion and you would not set a meeting.
Controller, point of order, please
You
address.
would not set a meeting, Corporation Counsel.
Not being recognized.
You would not
for
set a
this
meeting,
item.
Corporation Counsel, because you failed to do
Okay,
that.
so you know what?
You didn't want to
I
discuss
think-
the lawyer bill.
I think that.
So I think you should set up a meeting so we can discuss the
think-
lawyer bills that you, in fact, you already have.
Corporation Counsel, I think you have made your record. I think the public can see for themselves the disruption, the constant
Really?
disruption. And like you said, this is just, the organized chaos in which she presents herself.
Oh,
and
really?
operates. So we're just trying
That is so
to
sad that you
continue
would
to
think
go
of me in that
forward.
manner.
Only one thing that I would just add, if the Comptroller's assertion is that she has submitted Mr. Hashmall's bills ever to the War Department, as an ordinary course in my office, we stamp things in.
I asked you,
I would ask her to
Corporation
provide me
to
with
have a
any
meeting
standing
with me so we
copies.
can go over the law bills that
And
you are
I'm gonna,
holding within your
that
department
other
for
things
many
to do.
years.
But this is what our day is
You
like.
have yet to do
Typically,
that.
it's through emails, but now.
It's
the
very
Comptroller
simple.
is-
I said, set up a
And
meeting,
the public
Corporation
can see for
Counsel,
themselves.
24-hour
Okay.
notice so that, and provide me
Okay.
documentation.
I mean, the chair now recognizes Councilman Marcus Griffin. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just like to review what we've done here. We've discussed, the controller has discussed any deficiencies with the mayor's office. The deficiency that that brought us here today is the deficiency of the lack of communication with one of our partners in government, which is the school district.
Yes.
The lack of communication is not coming from the mayor's office in this regard. It's coming from the controller's office, and it's not a tune of a bill or some minor invoice or some minor check. It's to the tune of $25+ million. So 28. So I think we need to really concentrate on the big issues at hand and not on the small issues at hand. The big issue is $28 million that the school district is asking us about. And the controller sat here and directed the mayor's office how to handle invoices. The controller's office needs to handle the invoices from the school district as she should. And that is her fiduciary responsibility to collect taxes from the taxpayers and transfer that to our partner in government, which is the school district. And I also have to say this. All of these lawyers that we are hiring and that have to be hired from either the school district's point of view or from the city's point of view or from the controller's point of view are all being paid by the taxpayers. So this level of infighting, and now it's not even within City Hall. This is a level of infighting with our government partner, and it needs to stop, and it really needs to stop, beginning with some financial information from the controller's office to city government so so that we can settle this discrepancy with our partner in government, which is the school district. And with that, Madam Mayor, I'd like to continue with the agenda at hand so we can move forward
Yes.
to resolve this issue.
Thank you. So, you've already read into the record the resolution that is on the table to hire the Oxman Law Group. We have already discussed it on the question, and now I am asking for you to call for the vote.
Controller Reynolds, how say you?
No?
President Pro Tem.
Aye.
And Mayor Paxton Howard.
Aye. We're gonna ask for a motion to adjourn.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move to adjourn the meeting.
I second it. On the question, hearing none, you can call for the roll.
Controller Reynolds, how say you on the motion to adjourn?
Aye.
President Pro Tem Griffin.
Aye.
Mayor Paxton Howard.
Aye.
Thank you.
Have a good
Ladies and
day.
gentlemen, we are adjourned.